A rich man sinking with his car in a dark river during a storm feels that his life is over. At the bottom of the water, he sees his bankrupt past and cries out for a miracle that never seems to come. But a street girl, invisible to the world, dives in without hesitation to save him. In that instant, a connection is born that will transform two destinies marked by loneliness and pain. If this story interested you, subscribe to our channel, don't forget to like this video, and tell us which city you're watching us from. We'll keep going. The Seattle rain had been falling steadily for hours, turning the city into a glistening maze of reflections as Maxwell Calloway steered his Aston Martin through the evening traffic. Raindrops pelted the windshield with increasing intensity, matching his darkening mood. The board meeting had been a disaster. 3 years of work on the Riverside Development Project, gone. Just like that. "Damn it," Max muttered, loosening his silk tie with one hand while navigating the slick roads with the other. At 42, he'd built Calloway Enterprises from the remnants of his father's failing real estate business into one of the Pacific Northwest's premier development firms. But today, watching investors pull out one by one, he'd felt like that uncertain young man again, desperately trying to prove himself. His phone buzzed with Victoria's name on the screen. His sister had warned him about pushing the Riverside project too aggressively. He silenced the call, not ready for her inevitable, "I told you so." The Montlake Bridge loomed ahead, its metal framework gleaming wet in the headlights. Built in the 1920s, the drawbridge connected the University District to the affluent neighborhoods where Max's lakeside home waited, empty and dark. The windshield wipers struggled against the downpour as Max accelerated, eager to leave this day behind. He didn't see the patch of oil until his tires hit it. The Aston Martin's back end swung out violently. Max jerked the wheel, overcorrected, and felt the sickening sensation of losing control. The guardrail appeared suddenly in his headlights. There was a deafening crunch of metal, and then weightlessness. Time slowed as the car broke through the barrier. In that suspended moment, Max thought of his daughter Olivia, away at her Boston boarding school, whom he barely knew anymore. He thought of his father, whose approval he'd chased even after Richard Calloway was gone. And then, impact. The Aston Martin hit the water with a force that slammed Max against his seatbelt. Cold water rushed in faster than he'd expected. Not like in movies where there's time to plan an escape. The car was sinking nose first, water already reaching his knees. Panic seized him. Max fumbled with his seatbelt, but the mechanism jammed. He pounded the window button, but the electrical system was dead. He kicked at the glass, but the water's resistance made his movements weak and ineffective. The car tilted forward as it descended, murky lake water now up to his chest. "Help!" he screamed, though no one could hear him. Water reached his neck, then his chin. Max took one last desperate breath before the water covered his face. In the eerie green darkness, he thought, "So this is how it ends." But beneath the Montlake Bridge, someone had heard. 13-year-old Lily had been curled beneath a blue tarp in her makeshift shelter, clutching her one-armed teddy bear, Mr. Hugs, when the crash jolted her awake. Most nights she'd learned to ignore the city's chaotic soundtrack. Survival meant keeping to yourself, staying invisible. 2 years on Seattle's streets had taught her that much. But something about the sound, metal tearing, followed by a splash, made her crawl to the edge of her hidden alcove. Through sheets of rain, she saw the broken guardrail and ripples spreading across the lake's surface. Headlights glowed eerily beneath the water. "Someone's down there," she whispered to herself, her breath fogging in the cold air. Lily hesitated. Getting involved meant being seen. Being seen meant questions about why a kid was living under a bridge, about the bruises that hadn't fully faded from her last stay at the group home, about the social workers who would try to help by sending her back to places worse than the streets. But if she were trapped down there, her mind flashed to her mother's face, to the last time she'd seen her before everything fell apart. "We always help when we can, Lilyflower," she'd said. "That's what makes us human." "Damn it," Lily muttered, echoing the words she'd heard from countless adults. She grabbed a heavy rock from her collection of potential weapons and sprinted toward the water's edge. The lake was frigid. May in Seattle was never truly warm, but adrenaline dulled the shock. Lily was a strong swimmer. The community center pool had been her refuge before everything changed. She dove deep, following the glow of headlights to the sinking car. Inside, a man in a suit was pounding weakly against the window, his movements becoming sluggish. Their eyes met through the glass, his wide with terror, hers narrowed with determination. Lily surfaced for a quick breath, then dove again with the rock clutched tightly. It took 3 brutal strikes before the passenger window finally cracked. One more powerful hit, and the glass shattered inward. Water rushed into the car with violent force. The man was barely conscious now. Lily reached through the broken window, feeling the sharp edges slice her arm, and fumbled with his seatbelt. The buckle finally gave way. She grabbed his expensive suit jacket and pulled with all the strength her thin frame could muster. For a terrifying moment, they were both stuck, the man too large for the window, Lily too small to provide enough leverage. Her lungs screamed for air. Then, with one final desperate tug, he slipped through the opening. They broke the surface together, the man gasping and coughing as Lily struggled to keep his head above water. The shore seemed impossibly far. Each stroke was agony, her arms burning as she fought the current and the dead weight of the semi-conscious man. But inch by inch, she pulled them both toward land. By the time they reached the muddy bank, Lily's entire body trembled with exhaustion. She dragged the man onto the grass and collapsed beside him, both of them soaked and shivering in the relentless rain. "Thank you," he managed between ragged breaths. Lily just nodded, already calculating her escape. Sirens wailed in the distance. Someone had called 911. She needed to disappear before questions began. "Wait," the man called weakly as she stood. "Who are you?" Lily hesitated, rain plastering her dark hair to her pale face. For a heartbeat, their eyes met again, his showing wonder and gratitude, hers guarded and wary. "Nobody," she finally answered, and melted into the shadows beneath the bridge. Max tried to call after her, but his voice failed him. His vision blurred as the adrenaline faded, replaced by crushing pain in his chest. The last thing he saw before losing consciousness was a small, wet footprint on the grass beside him, already being washed away by the rain. When the paramedics arrived minutes later, they found only one person at the scene, a well-dressed man in soaked designer clothes, alive against all odds. The official report would state that Maxwell Calloway had somehow freed himself from his sinking vehicle and swam to shore before collapsing from hypothermia and shock. But Max knew better. Someone had saved him. A child with eyes that had seen too much and the strength of someone twice her size. A girl who had vanished like a ghost, and he would find her no matter what it took. Max woke to the rhythmic beeping of hospital monitors and the sterile smell of disinfectant. His throat felt raw, his chest ached with each breath, and his mind swam with fragmented memories. The crash, the water rushing in, and then those eyes. The girl who had appeared from nowhere and vanished just as quickly. "Welcome back to the land of the living," a voice said. Victoria Calloway sat in a chair beside his bed, her tailored charcoal suit immaculate despite having spent the night in the hospital. She closed her laptop and leaned forward. "You've been unconscious for 2 days. The doctors said you had severe hypothermia and water in your lungs." Max tried to speak, but only managed a painful cough. "Don't strain yourself," Victoria said, pouring a cup of water. "The board sends their regards. Don't worry about anything at the office. I've already issued a statement about your health emergency and rescheduled the Westlake investors for next month." Max took a small sip, the cool water soothing his throat. "The girl," he rasped. "Did they find her?" Victoria's perfectly shaped eyebrows drew together. "What girl?" "The one who saved me. She broke the window, pulled me out." His voice was barely audible. Victoria exchanged a glance with Dr. Patel, who had entered the room during their conversation. The doctor stepped forward, checking Max's vitals with practiced efficiency. "Mr. Calloway, you were alone when emergency services arrived," Dr. Patel explained. "It's common for trauma victims to experience confabulation. your mind creating memories to fill gaps during moments of extreme stress. "I'm not making this up," Max insisted, his voice stronger now. She was real. Young, maybe 12 or 13, dark hair, thin. She disappeared before the ambulance came. Victoria placed a manicured hand on his arm. "Max, you were trapped, underwater. The paramedics said it's a miracle you managed to free yourself. Your seatbelt was still fastened in the car when they pulled it out yesterday. The impact must have damaged the mechanism, but somehow you got out." "That's because she helped me," Max said, frustration building. Why wouldn't they believe him? Dr. Patel made a note on his chart. "Near-death experiences can be very powerful, Mr. Calloway. Your mind was trying to make sense of a traumatic event. We'll run some additional cognitive tests, but I assure you these types of temporary delusions are perfectly normal." Max fell silent, recognizing the futility of arguing. He knew what he had experienced. The girl had been as real as the hospital bed beneath him. Her determined expression, her surprising strength, the way she'd said nobody when he'd asked her name. But clearly, he would. Find no allies here. The doctor left after explaining Max's treatment plan, and Victoria busied herself responding to emails, the soft clicking of her keyboard filling the quiet room. "I need my phone," Max said suddenly. "The police recovered it from your car, but it's water damaged beyond repair," Victoria replied without looking up. "I've already ordered you a new one. It'll be delivered tomorrow with your personal effects." "I need it now," Max insisted. "And my laptop." Victoria finally looked up, her expression a mixture of concern and irritation. "You nearly lost your life 2 days ago. Whatever business crisis you think you need to handle can wait." "It's not about business," Max said. "I need to find her." "The imaginary girl." Victoria sighed. "Max, you need to rest." But Max had already thrown back the covers and was attempting to stand, ignoring the stabbing pain in his ribs. Victoria jumped up to stop him. "What do you think you're doing?" she demanded. "You're in no condition to leave." "Then get me what I need," Max said, his voice quiet but firm. "I'm not imagining things, Victoria. Someone saved my life, and then she disappeared. I need to find her. I need to thank her." Something in his tone made Victoria pause. In the 20 years since their father's passing, she had rarely seen her brother so determined about anything not related to Calloway Enterprises. "Fine," she relented. "I'll bring you my tablet. But promise me you'll stay in bed and follow the doctor's orders." Max nodded, sinking back against the pillows. The brief exertion had exhausted him, but his mind remained clear. The girl was real and he would find her. True to her word, Victoria returned with her tablet. Once she left for a board meeting, Max began his search. He started with local news reports about the accident, but found only brief mentions of his miraculous escape and speculation about the impact on Calloway Enterprises' stock prices. No mention of a young rescuer. Next, he searched for missing children in the Seattle area. The results were overwhelming and heartbreaking. Dozens of faces appeared on his screen, some missing for days, others for years. He scrolled through, them all looking for eyes he would recognize, but found nothing. By evening, Max had moved on to researching homeless youth in Seattle. The statistics were sobering. On any given night, hundreds of kids were on the streets, many of them hiding from the very systems designed to protect them. Most stayed invisible, avoiding shelters and official channels for fear of being returned to abusive homes or group facilities. When Dr. Patel came to check on him, he found Max surrounded by printouts Victoria had reluctantly provided. "This isn't exactly what I meant by rest, Mr. Calloway," the doctor said disapprovingly. "I'll rest when I find her," Max replied, not looking up from the tablet. After 3 days, against medical advice, but with no legal grounds to keep him, the hospital discharged Max. Victoria arranged for a private nurse to continue his care at home, but Max had other plans. The moment he arrived at his lakeside mansion, he dismissed the nurse with a generous severance check. Once alone, he changed from his hospital-issued clothes into jeans and a plain sweater, items he hadn't worn in years. Looking at himself in the mirror, he barely recognized the man staring back. Pale, thinner, with several days' worth of stubble and dark circles under his eyes. Good. He wouldn't stand out where he was going. Max grabbed his new phone and a wad of cash, then called the one person he knew could help him navigate Seattle's invisible communities. Samuel, it's Max Calloway. I need your expertise on something unofficial. Samuel Washington had been Max's head of security for 5 years before leaving to start his own private investigation firm. He arrived at the mansion within the hour, his expression betraying his shock at Max's appearance. "You look like hell," Samuel said bluntly. "Thanks for coming," Max replied, ignoring the comment. "I need to find someone, and it needs to stay off the books." Samuel's eyebrows rose. "This have anything to do with your accident?" "Everything." Max handed him a sketch he'd had an artist create based on his recollection of the girl. "She saved my life, then vanished. I need to find her." Samuel studied the drawing. A thin-faced girl with wary eyes and a determined set to her jaw. "Kid? Why would a kid be involved?" "That's what I need to find out." Max held Samuel's gaze. "She pulled me from that car, Samuel. No one believes me, but I know what happened. I owe her my life, and I need to find her." Samuel was quiet for a long moment. "This won't be easy. Street kids don't trust adults, especially well-dressed ones asking questions, and if she's deliberately staying hidden—" "I don't care how hard it is," Max interrupted. "I don't care what it costs. She's out there somewhere, probably still living under that bridge, and I need to find her." Samuel tucked the sketch into his jacket. "All right, I'll start with the Montlake area. Talk to some contacts in outreach programs. But Max," he hesitated, "you need to prepare yourself. Kids on the street, they don't always want to be found, and sometimes there are reasons for that." Max nodded. "Just find her. I'll handle the rest." After Samuel left, Max stood at his floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the lake where he'd nearly lost his life. Somewhere in this city was a girl who had risked everything to save a stranger, a girl who had called herself Nobody. "You're somebody to me," he whispered, to the rain-streaked glass, "and I will find you." The rain had finally stopped after 5 straight days, leaving Seattle's streets glistening under rare May sunshine. Max sat in Samuel's weathered Ford pickup, a far cry from his luxury vehicles, watching people pass by the neighborhood resource center in the University District. He'd swapped his designer clothes for a Seattle Seahawks hoodie and worn jeans, an attempt to blend in that Samuel had laughed at. "You still look like a millionaire playing dress-up," Samuel had told him bluntly, "but at least you won't scare them off immediately." For 2 weeks they'd been searching. Samuel had contacts throughout Seattle's homeless outreach programs, but information came in fragments. A girl matching their description had been spotted at a free meal program near Pike Place 3 months ago. Someone else thought they'd seen her at a youth drop-in center in Ballard last winter. Always glimpses, never enough to find her. "Remember," Samuel said, returning to the truck with coffee cups, "we're observers here. These kids have radar for authority figures and do-gooders. The minute they sense you want something, they scatter." Max nodded, accepting the paper cup. The bitter coffee burned his tongue, but he welcomed the sensation. Sleep had become elusive, his dreams filled with water and a faceless girl disappearing into shadows. "The center director confirmed they've seen a girl matching our description," Samuel continued. "They call her Shadow because she never stays long, takes food sometimes but avoids the staff, never gives her real name." "Shadow," Max repeated. It fit the determined, elusive figure from his memories. They watched as a group of teenagers gathered near the center's entrance. Most looked older than the girl Max remembered, their faces hard with experiences no child should have. "What about the teddy bear?" Max asked. In his clearest memory of her just before she'd vanished, she'd been clutching something to her chest, a ragged stuffed animal missing an arm. Samuel shook his head. No one mentioned a bear. A youth worker emerged from the center, distributing paper bags that the teens eagerly accepted. One girl hung back from the group, hood pulled low over her face. She was smaller than the others, thin shoulders hunched defensively. Max straightened. "Samuel." "I see her," Samuel said quietly. "Don't stare and don't get your hopes up. We've had 3 false alarms already." The hooded figure accepted a bag, then quickly retreated from the group. Something about her movement pattern struck Max as familiar, the careful way she surveyed her surroundings, always keeping her back to a wall. "It's her," he whispered. "I'm sure of it." Before Samuel could stop him, Max was out of the truck, moving toward the girl with measured steps. He saw her stiffen instantly, sensing his approach before she even turned. When she did, Max's heart sank. Though small and dark-haired, her face was rounder, her eyes a different shape than the ones that had haunted his dreams. "Sorry," Max mumbled, retreating. The girl glared suspiciously before darting away down an alley. Back in the truck, Samuel gave him a sympathetic look. "This isn't going to be easy, Max. We're looking for one specific needle in a very large, very complicated haystack." Max's phone buzzed with Victoria's name on the screen. The 15th call that week. He silenced it without answering. "You can't avoid her forever," Samuel noted. "The company won't run itself." "Victoria's handling things," Max replied dismissively. "Finding this girl is more important." Samuel studied him for a long moment. "Why? And don't give me that I owe her my lifeline again. There's something more going on here." Max stared out the window, watching a flock of pigeons scatter across the street. How could he explain what he barely understood himself? That night in the water had changed something fundamental inside him. His carefully constructed life, the mansion, the company, the endless pursuit of his father's approval, even years after the man was gone, suddenly seemed hollow. "I spent my entire life building something I thought mattered," Max finally said. "It took nearly drowning to realize none of it does, but this girl who has nothing, she risked everything for a stranger. I need to understand why." Samuel nodded slowly. "All right, but we need to be smarter about this. Let's try a different approach." For the next week, they expanded their search. Instead of looking for the girl directly, they mapped patterns. Samuel interviewed shelter workers, food bank volunteers, and street vendors. Max set up a post near the Montlake Bridge, not approaching anyone but making himself a regular presence, becoming part of the landscape. Slowly, a picture emerged. The girl they called Shadow had a territory. A roughly 10-block radius centered around Montlake and the University District. She never used shelters but would occasionally visit drop-in centers for food or medical supplies. She was always alone, never stayed anywhere long, and somehow remained invisible to most authority figures. "She's good," Samuel admitted, adding another marker to their map. "Better than most adults at staying off the grid, but everyone has patterns." On their third Sunday of surveillance, Max noticed something new while sitting on a bench near the bridge. A flash of red fabric caught on a chain-link fence leading down to the waterfront. Following his instinct, he carefully made his way down the muddy embankment to where several concrete pillars supported the bridge. Hidden behind the third pillar, almost invisible unless you knew exactly where to look, was a small encampment. Blue tarps, carefully secured, created a waterproof shelter. Stones lined a small fire pit, cold now but recently used. A plastic milk crate held neatly organized supplies, canned food, a battered flashlight, a small collection of books. Max's heart raced. This had to be her place. He crouched down, careful not to disturb anything. Near the makeshift bed of flattened cardboard and blankets, something caught his eye. A scrap of fabric, the same red he'd spotted on the fence. It had once been part of a child's sweatshirt, now repurposed as a patch for a blanket. As he reached for it, a voice behind him made him freeze. "I wouldn't touch that if I were you." Max turned slowly. A man in his 60s with a weathered face and a grey beard stood watching him, leaning on a walking stick. Despite his ragged clothes, he carried himself with dignity. "I'm not stealing anything," Max said, standing and showing his empty hands. "I'm looking for someone." "Aren't we all?" the man replied philosophically. He studied Max with sharp eyes. "You're the one who's been hanging around for weeks. Too clean for a homeless man, too patient for a cop." "My name is Max. I'm looking for a girl who might live here. Young, maybe 13, dark hair. People call her Shadow." The old man's expression remained neutral. "Lots of shadows under bridges. Why are you looking for this particular one?" Max hesitated, then decided on honesty. "She saved my life. My car went off the bridge a few weeks ago. She pulled me out, then disappeared. I need to find her, to thank her. Just to thank her. The man's gaze was penetrating. Nothing else you want? I want to help her, Max admitted. If she'll let me. The man seemed to consider this. They call me Doc, not because I'm a doctor, but because I listen well. He gestured toward the encampment. This place has been empty for 3 days. Shadow moved on. Max's heart sank. Do you know where? Knowing where people go isn't my business, Doc replied, but knowing why, that I sometimes understand. He pointed his walking stick toward the university district. There's an abandoned warehouse on Harrison Street. Used to be storage for the university. Security's been increased lately. Sweeps, police, not safe for those who prefer to remain unseen. Max understood the implication. She might have gone there to warn others. Doc shrugged. Maybe not. But if I had something important that needed keeping safe. He nodded toward the teddy bear Max had described earlier, conspicuously absent from the encampment. That's where I might go. Thank you, Max said earnestly, offering his hand. Doc looked at it for a moment before shaking it with surprising firmness. Word of advice. Whatever you're offering, make it simple. Street kids don't trust complicated. Too many strings. Max nodded, then hesitated. Can I ask why you're helping me? Doc's weathered face creased in a faint smile. Because you asked about her name, not what she might have stolen. Because you've been watching for weeks without calling the authorities. And because Shadow needs someone, looking out for her even if she'd never admit it. Before Max could respond, Doc had turned and begun making his way back up the embankment with surprising agility. By the time Samuel arrived at their meeting point, Max was bursting with nervous energy. I know where she might be, he explained, relaying his conversation with Doc. Samuel looked skeptical. A tip from a homeless man about an abandoned warehouse? That's pretty thin. It's the best lead we've had, Max insisted, and I believe him. The warehouse on Harrison Street looked like dozens of others in Seattle's industrial areas. Red brick exterior, boarded windows, chain-link fence topped with rusted barbed wire. Signs warning of security systems and guard dogs were posted, though the building's deteriorating condition suggested they were bluffs. They parked a block away and approached on foot. Samuel pointed out fresh cuts in the fence. Someone had created an entry point recently. I should go alone from here, Max said. Samuel frowned. Not a chance. We have no idea what's in there. Exactly why I should go alone, Max argued. 1 strange man might be scary. 2 is definitely a threat. She'll run if she sees us both. After further debate, Samuel reluctantly agreed to wait outside, but insisted on a 2-hour time limit before coming in after him. Max slipped through the gap in the fence and approached the warehouse cautiously. A side door hung partially open, its lock long since broken. Inside, shafts of late afternoon sunlight streamed through holes in the roof, illuminating dust particles dancing in the air. The vast space was divided by remnants of storage shelving and forgotten machinery. Hello? Max called softly. His voice echoed through the empty building. I'm not here to hurt anyone. I'm looking for someone. No response came, but Max sensed he wasn't alone. The warehouse had the feeling of a place where humans had recently been. Subtle disturbances in the dust, a candy wrapper that hadn't had time to collect grime. He moved deeper into the building. My name is Max Calloway. 3 weeks ago, my car went off the Montlake Bridge. Someone saved me. A girl, I just want to thank her. As he rounded a stack of ancient packing crates, he spotted it, a small fortress of sorts. Wooden pallets created walls, blankets served as a roof, and a makeshift alarm system of cans on strings surrounded the perimeter. And there, peeking through a gap in the pallets, was a single dark eye, watching him warily. Max's heart stopped. He'd found her. I know you're there, Max said softly, keeping his distance from the pallet fortress. I'm not going to come any closer unless you say it's okay. The eye disappeared. For a moment, Max feared she would flee, but then a small voice came from within the shelter. How did you find me? I've been looking everywhere, Max replied honestly. Someone called Doc pointed me in this direction. A long silence followed. Then, what do you want? "To thank you," Max said. "You saved my life. And then you disappeared before I could even ask your name." Another pause. "You should have just forgotten about it." "How could I forget the person who pulled me from a sinking car?" Max asked. "How you risked your life for a complete stranger?" The palette shifted slightly, and Max caught a glimpse of her. Thin face, dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, eyes that held a wariness beyond her years. She clutched the one-armed teddy bear against her chest, its worn fur a faded brown. "You would have done the same," she said, as if it were obvious. The simplicity of her response stunned him. Would he have? Before the accident, Max wasn't sure he would have even noticed someone in trouble, let alone risked everything to help them. "What's your name?" he asked. "Your real one, not Shadow." Her eyes narrowed suspiciously. "Who told you that name?" "People at the resource center. They said you never stay long." She considered this, then seemed to make a decision. "Lily," she finally said. "Lily Parker." "I'm Maxwell Calloway, Max." "I know who you are," Lily replied. "Your picture was in the newspaper, miracle survivor or something." Max smiled ruefully. "Not exactly a miracle, just a brave girl with a rock." That earned him the faintest ghost of a smile before her expression hardened again. "Well, now you've thanked me. You can go back to your life." But Max remained where he was. "How long have you been on your own, Lily?" She shrugged. "Long enough." "Do you have family somewhere? Someone who's looking for you?" Lily's face closed off completely. "I need to go. You should leave." "Wait," Max said quickly, sensing she was about to bolt. "I'm not trying to report you or send you back anywhere. I just want to help." "I don't need your help," Lily snapped, her voice suddenly fierce. "I don't need anyone's help." "I saved you because," she faltered, "because it was the right thing to do, not because I wanted something from you." "I know that," Max said gently, "but maybe I need to help you, for the same reason." Their eyes met through the gap in the pallets, and something unspoken passed between them, a recognition, perhaps, of the same stubborn determination in different circumstances. Before Lily could respond, a metallic clang echoed through the warehouse, followed by a shout. "Police, anyone inside, make yourselves known." Lily's eyes widened in panic. "You brought them," she hissed accusingly. "No, I swear," Max whispered urgently. "It must be a regular sweep. My friend is outside. He'll create a distraction. Is there another way out?" Lily was already gathering her few possessions, stuffing them into a worn backpack with practiced efficiency. "Backloading dock. Follow me, and be quiet." She slipped out of her shelter like a shadow, moving with the silent precision of someone accustomed to going unnoticed. Max followed, trying to mimic her careful footsteps. They wound through the labyrinth of abandoned machinery toward the rear of the warehouse, the voices of the police growing louder behind them. "Stop there!" A flashlight beam cut through the dusty air, catching them in its harsh glow. Lily froze, then looked at Max with betrayal in her eyes. "Run," he whispered. "I'll handle this." She hesitated for only a second before darting away, disappearing behind a stack of crates. Max turned to face the approaching officers, positioning himself to block their view of Lily's escape route. "Sir, this is private property," the first officer said, eyeing Max's expensive watch, the one item of luxury he hadn't thought to remove. "I'm aware," Max replied calmly. "I'm Max Calloway. My company is considering purchasing this building for redevelopment." The lie came easily, backed by the confidence of his position. "I was just conducting a preliminary inspection." The officers exchanged glances, recognition dawning at his surname. Max Calloway was, after all, a known figure in Seattle's business community. "You should have proper authorization, Mr. Calloway," the second officer said, less confrontational now. "This area isn't safe. We've had reports of squatters and drug activity." "You're absolutely right," Max agreed smoothly. "It was impulsive of me. I saw the property listing and wanted a first-hand look. I should have gone through proper channels." While he kept the officers engaged, Max scanned the warehouse periphery, catching a glimpse of Lily's small form slipping through a broken window near the loading dock. Relief washed over him. She'd gotten away. After providing his business, Card and promising to schedule an official inspection, Max was escorted from the property. Samuel was waiting anxiously by the fence. "What happened? I heard the police and was about to come in after you." "She was there," Max said, still processing, "at the encounter. We talked, but then the police came. She escaped out the back." Samuel cursed softly. "So we're back to square one." "No," Max said, surprising himself with his certainty. "She'll go back to the bridge. It's her home base. After this, she'll be more careful than ever." "Maybe," Max acknowledged, "but she left something behind." He opened his hand to reveal a small scrap of red fabric, identical to the patch he'd seen at her camp under the bridge. "She'll want this back." That night, Max couldn't sleep. He paced his expansive living room, replaying his brief conversation with Lily. There had been something in her eyes when she'd said her name, a flicker of hesitation, as if she were testing how it felt to speak it aloud after so long being nobody. Lily Parker. The name felt significant somehow, though he couldn't place why. His phone rang, Victoria's name flashing on the screen. It was nearly midnight, unusual for his always proper sister to call so late. "Victoria, is everything all right?" "That depends on your definition," she replied, her voice tense. "The board is getting restless, Max. Your personal leave was acceptable for a week, maybe two, but it's been almost a month. Rumors are starting. The Westlake investors are threatening to pull out if you don't personally reassure them." Max sighed. "You're handling things perfectly. The company doesn't need me right now." "That's not the point," Victoria snapped. "What's going on with you? Samuel said you've been obsessed with finding some homeless girl. This isn't like you, Max." "Maybe that's the problem," Max replied quietly. "Maybe the person I was before. The accident isn't someone I want to be anymore." Victoria was silent for a moment. "You're not thinking clearly. Near-death experiences can cause psychological trauma. Dr. Patel recommended a therapist." "I'm not traumatized, Victoria," Maxie interrupted. "I'm awake for the first time in years." "What does that even mean?" Frustration edged her voice. "You have responsibilities to the company, to our father's legacy." "Dad's been gone for 20 years, Max said, "and I've spent every day since trying to live up to what I thought he wanted. But for what? So Callaway Enterprises could build more luxury condos no one can afford? So I could die alone in a bigger house?" "This is ridiculous," Victoria said. "I'm coming over. We need to talk, face to face." "Not tonight," Max insisted. "I need to be up early tomorrow. I'm going back to the bridge." "The bridge where you almost lost your life to look for this girl who probably doesn't even want to be found?" Victoria's voice rose. "Max, listen to yourself." "Her name is Lily," Max said firmly. "And she saved me when she had absolutely no reason to. The least I can do is make sure she's safe." Victoria was quiet for so long that Max thought she might have hung up. Finally, she spoke, her voice unnaturally controlled. "Lily, you said. What's her last name?" Something in Victoria's tone made Max's skin prickle. "Parker," he said slowly. "Lily Parker. Why?" Another long pause. "It's nothing. Just be careful, Max. Street kids can be dangerous, manipulative." "She's not," Max began, but Victoria had already ended the call. He stared at his phone, puzzled by his sister's sudden shift in tone. Victoria had always been the practical one, the planner, who kept both him and the company on track after their father's passing. Her concern was natural, but her reaction to Lily's name felt off somehow. Shaking off his unease, Max returned to his preparations for the next day. He packed a small duffel bag with items he thought Lily might need. A new backpack, some non-perishable, food, a first aid kit, a waterproof sleeping bag, and a new teddy bear to replace her worn one. As an afterthought, he added the red fabric scrap, carefully stored in a plastic bag. Early the next morning, Max drove to the Montlake Bridge and made his way down to the encampment beneath it. As he'd suspected, someone had been there recently. The tarps were adjusted, the fire pit had fresh ashes. He settled on a flat rock nearby, the duffel bag beside him, and waited. Hours passed. Joggers ran along the waterfront trail above. A Parks Department worker collected trash without noticing the hidden shelter. Max remained still, patient in a way his former self would never have understood. As twilight approached, he heard it, the faintest rustle of movement behind him. He didn't turn. "The red fabric is in the side pocket," he said quietly, "along with some other things I thought might be useful." Silence. Then soft footsteps. From the corner of his eye, he saw Lily approach the bag cautiously, keeping a safe distance from him. She unzipped the pocket and extracted the scrap of red fabric, relief visible on her face. "It was my mom's," she said softly. "Her scarf. It's all I have left." Max nodded, still looking out at the water. "I thought it might be important." Lily hesitated, then sat on a rock a few feet away, clutching the fabric. "Why are you doing this?" "Doing what?" "Looking for me. Bringing me things." Her voice held genuine confusion. Nobody does something for nothing. Max turned to face her fully for the first time. In the fading light, she looked even younger than he'd remembered, her cheekbones sharp beneath pale skin. "Maybe I'm trying to be more like you," he said honestly. Lily frowned. "Like me? Why would you want that? I have nothing." "You have courage," Max replied, "and principles, and the ability to see someone drowning and jump in to save them instead of walking away. That's not nothing, Lily, that's everything." Lily looked down, uncomfortable with the praise. "I just did what anyone would do." "But that's just it. Most people wouldn't," Max insisted. "They'd call 911 and hope for the best. You risked your life for a stranger." She shrugged, then cautiously reached for the duffel bag, examining its contents. Her eyes widened at the sleeping bag and food supplies, but she withdrew her hand when she saw the new teddy bear. "I don't need charity," she said stiffly. "It's not charity," Max replied. "It's a thank you. And maybe," he hesitated, "maybe it's also an offer." Lily's posture immediately became defensive. "What kind of offer?" "A safe place to stay," Max said carefully. "No strings attached. I have an apartment above my garage that no one uses. It has its own entrance, a bathroom, a small kitchen. You could have privacy, security, and still come and go as you please." Lily's eyes narrowed. "Why would you let a stranger live in your house?" "You're not a stranger," Max said. "You're the person who saved my life." "That doesn't mean you know me," Lily countered. "I could steal from you. I could be dangerous." Max smiled slightly. "Are you? Dangerous?" "No," she admitted reluctantly, "but I don't need some rich guy's pity either." "It's not pity," Max insisted. "It's..." He struggled to articulate the feeling that had been growing inside him since the accident. "It's recognizing that sometimes people connect for a reason, that maybe saving each other goes both ways." Lily stared at him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then she stood, gathering the duffel bag. "I'll think about it," she said, finally. Max nodded, not pushing further. He wrote his address and phone number on a piece of paper and handed it to her. "The offer has no expiration date. And Lily, thank you, not just for saving me, but for reminding me what matters." She accepted the paper with a slight nod, then disappeared into the growing darkness as silently as she had arrived. As Max climbed back up to street level, he was unaware of the black sedan parked nearby, or of Victoria watching through tinted windows, her expression troubled as she made a phone call. "He found her," she said tensely. "Yes, the Parker girl. We need to handle this now." The Callaway estate stood like a fortress on the shores of Lake Washington, its modernist architecture a stark contrast to the lush Pacific Northwest landscape surrounding it. Victoria paced the mahogany-paneled study that had once been their father's domain, her heels clicking rhythmically on the hardwood floor as she awaited her visitor. When the housekeeper announced Mr. Harrison's arrival, Victoria straightened, her already impeccable posture. Lawrence Harrison had been the Callaway family attorney for over 30 years, handling everything from corporate acquisitions to personal matters with unwavering discretion. "This is highly irregular, Victoria," Harrison said as he entered, his silver hair perfectly combed, his leather briefcase worn but expensive. "These documents haven't been accessed since your father's estate was settled." "Circumstances have changed," Victoria replied tersely. "Max is unwell. The accident affected him more deeply than we initially thought." Harrison raised a skeptical eyebrow as he placed his briefcase on the desk. "He seemed perfectly lucid when I spoke with him last week about the Westlake property negotiations." "Lucid, yes. Rational, no." Victoria's fingers drummed nervously on the desk. "He's become obsessed with a homeless girl who he believes saved him from the accident. He's neglecting his responsibilities, talking about giving her a place to live. It's completely out of character. And this concerns the sealed documents because," Harrison prompted. Victoria hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "Because the girl calls herself Lily Parker." The attorney's expression changed subtly, a tightening around the eyes, a slight compression of his lips. "I see. So you remember," Victoria said. "Your father's indiscretions were not something easily forgotten," Harrison replied, "though he went to great lengths to ensure they were buried." Victoria moved to the window, looking out at the manicured grounds. "Max knows nothing about this. Father made sure of that. He was always protective of Max's sensibilities. And you believe this girl is—" "I don't know what she is," Victoria interrupted. "A coincidence, a con artist, or—" She couldn't bring herself to say the word. Harrison opened his briefcase and removed a thick file with "Confidential" stamped across it in faded red ink. "These are all the documents related to the Parker settlement. Signed NDAs, financial records, the amended will. Everything your father wanted contained." Victoria took the file with slight reluctance, as if it might burn her fingers. "Does it mention the child?" "There was a clause providing for a minor, yes. Monthly payments to be made to the mother until the child reached 18, contingent upon their silence and relocation out of state." Harrison's voice was clinically detached. "The payments were stopped approximately 8 years ago when we received notice that Ellen Parker had passed away in an accident. There was no further contact from the family." Victoria did the mental calculation. "So the child would be 13 now, possibly 14, Harrison confirmed, "if she's still alive." Victoria opened the file. Inside were legal documents, bank statements, and a single photograph. A young woman with dark hair and defiant eyes, holding an infant swaddled in a red blanket. She felt a chill of recognition. The timeline fit. The appearance fit. Even the scrap of red fabric Max had mentioned could be explained. "This stays between us," Victoria said firmly, closing the file. "No one can know, especially Max." Harrison frowned. "If there's a legitimate heir—" "There isn't," Victoria cut him off. "Father made sure of that legally. The settlement explicitly stated that neither Ellen Parker nor her child would ever have claim to the Calloway name or assets." "Legal documents can be challenged," Harrison warned, "especially when it involves a minor who had no say in the agreement." Victoria's expression hardened. "Then we need to ensure it never comes to that. Max cannot know about this connection. He's already irrational about this girl. If he discovered she might be—" She couldn't finish the sentence. "Your half-sister," Harrison supplied. "A mistake," Victoria corrected sharply. "A complication that could destroy everything we've built. The company is finally recovering from the pandemic losses. The Riverside project will cement our position in the market for decades. I won't let some street urchin with questionable DNA threaten that." Harrison studied her for a moment. "What exactly do you intend to do, Victoria?" She turned back to the window, her reflection hardened with resolve. "Whatever is necessary to protect the Calloway legacy." Across the city, oblivious to the meeting taking place, Max was in his home office reviewing the plans for a new project, not a Calloway Enterprises development, but something entirely different. The blueprints spread across his desk showed a modest building with multiple small apartments, a common area, and support service spaces. "A transitional housing facility for homeless youth?" Samuel asked, studying the plans over Max's shoulder. "This is unexpected." "Is it?" Max replied without looking up. "Seattle has one of the highest youth homelessness rates in the country. Most shelters are overcrowded, understaffed, and Unsafe, especially for girls. They need somewhere they can feel secure while they figure out next steps. Samuel nodded slowly. And this has nothing to do with a certain young lady who might benefit from such a place? Max finally looked up. It has everything to do with her, and others like her. Kids who've slipped through every crack in the system. Have you heard from her? Samuel asked. Not yet, Max admitted, but she has my number, my address. She'll come when she's ready. Samuel looked skeptical but didn't argue. Instead, he placed a folder on the desk. Background check came back. On Lily Parker. There's not much. No current address, no school records for the past 2 years, no social media presence. But I did find something interesting. Max opened the folder eagerly, scanning the sparse information. Her mother died in a car accident in Portland 8 years ago, he read aloud. Father unknown. She was placed with a maternal aunt afterward, but there are reports of suspected neglect. She entered the foster system at age 10 after running away multiple times, then disappeared from her last placement 3 years ago. His heart ached at the clinical summary of what must have been a devastating series of losses and betrayals. No wonder Lily trusted no one. Turn to the last page, Samuel instructed. Max did, then froze. The document was a death certificate for Ellen Parker, Lily's mother. Listed under emergency contact was a name that made his blood run cold. Richard Calloway. This has to be a mistake, Max said, his voice barely audible. That's what I thought too, Samuel replied. So I dug deeper. Your father had a relationship with Ellen Parker 20 years ago, while still married to your mother. It ended around the time Ellen discovered she was pregnant. Shortly after, she relocated to Portland with a substantial financial settlement. Max felt as if he were drowning again, fighting for air as his world tilted sideways. Are you saying that Lily is your half-sister? Samuel confirmed. DNA would confirm it, but the timeline fits. The physical resemblance is there too. She has the Calloway eyes. Max stood abruptly, knocking his chair backward. Does she know? Is that why she saved me? Why she was living under that specific bridge? Samuel shook his head. I don't think so. From what I could find, Ellen never told Lily about her father. The settlement included an NDA preventing Ellen from ever revealing Richard Calloway's connection to her or her child. Max paced the room, his mind racing. My father knew he had another daughter and just paid to make her go away? What kind of man does that? The kind who prioritizes his public image and legacy, Samuel said quietly. It wasn't uncommon, especially for men in his position. Max stopped suddenly. Victoria, does she know? Samuel hesitated. I can't say for certain, but given her position as executor of your father's estate after his passing, it's likely she had access to this information. The betrayal cut deeper than Max could have imagined. All these years, while he'd been running the company, attending charity galas, living in luxury, his half-sister had been alone, abandoned, struggling to survive on Seattle's streets. I need to find her, Max said urgently. Now! Max, wait, Samuel cautioned. Think this through. She has no idea who you really are to her. If you rush in with this revelation... She saved my life, Max interrupted. My own sister pulled me from that car, not knowing we shared the same blood. Don't you see? It can't be coincidence. Somehow we were meant to find each other. Samuel looked unconvinced. Or it was just random chance. The universe doesn't usually arrange such neat narratives. Max wasn't listening. He grabbed his jacket and car keys. I'm going back to the bridge. She might have returned by now. And what will you tell her? Samuel called after him. That her father abandoned her before birth and her half-brother is a millionaire who never knew she existed? How do you think she'll react to that? The question stopped Max in his tracks. How would Lily react? She'd survived by distrusting everyone, by expecting the worst from people, learning that her biological father had paid to keep her existence secret, that she had family who had lived in wealth while she struggled. It would devastate her. Or worse, she might think Max had known all along, that his search for her had been motivated by guilt rather than gratitude. I don't know, Max admitted. But I can't keep this from her. She deserves the truth. As Max headed for the door, his phone rang. The screen showed an unfamiliar number. He answered cautiously. "Mr. Calloway," a young female voice, hesitant but familiar. "It's Lily. I've been thinking about your offer." Max's heart raced. "Lily, yes, are you okay?" "I'm fine," she replied, though something in her tone suggested otherwise. "I was wondering if that room is still available." "Of course," Max said immediately. "It's yours whenever you want it. Do you need me to pick you up somewhere?" A pause. "No, I can get there. What's the address again?" Max repeated his address, trying to contain his shock and relief. "When should I expect you?" "Tonight, maybe, if that's okay." Her voice sounded smaller now, less certain. "Tonight is perfect," Max assured her. "I'll have everything ready." After they disconnected, Max stood motionless, phone still in hand. Lily was coming. His sister, though she didn't know it yet, was finally accepting his help. The revelation of their relationship would have to wait. First, he needed to earn her trust. What Max couldn't know was that Lily wasn't alone when she made that call. Standing beside her in the sterile conference room of Child Protective Services was a stern-faced social worker and Victoria Calloway, whose thin smile didn't reach her cold eyes. "Very good," Victoria said as Lily handed back the phone. "You've made the right decision." Lily looked up at her, confusion and wariness evident in her expression. "I still don't understand why you came looking for me, or why you want me to stay with your brother." Victoria's smile remained fixed. "As I explained, we've been searching for you since your mother's passing. The foster system failed you, and as your extended family, we feel responsible." "Family?" Lily repeated skeptically. "My mom never mentioned any family besides Aunt Meg." "It's complicated," Victoria replied smoothly, "but everything will be explained tonight. Max is very eager to help you." The social worker nodded encouragingly. "This is a tremendous opportunity, Lily. The Calloways are one of Seattle's most respected families. They can provide stability, education, a real future." Lily's fingers worried the frayed ear of her one-armed teddy bear, a habit she'd had since childhood. Something felt wrong about this sudden intervention, this too-perfect solution, but she was tired. Tired of running, tired of being cold and hungry, tired of watching over her shoulder. And Max had been kind. He'd looked at her like she mattered. "Okay," she said finally. "I'll go." Victoria's smile widened as she placed a manicured hand on Lily's shoulder, squeezing just a little too tightly. "Excellent. We're going to be one big happy family." As they left the building, Lily couldn't shake the feeling that she was walking into something she didn't fully understand. But for the first time in years, she allowed herself a small, dangerous feeling: hope. Max spent the afternoon preparing the garage apartment with nervous energy that surprised even himself. He replaced the generic furnishings with warmer pieces, a comfortable bed with soft blankets, a reading chair by the window, bookshelves filled with young adult novels and photography books. He stocked the small kitchen with groceries, filled the bathroom with new toiletries, and placed a desk under the window overlooking the garden, complete with a laptop and art supplies. Standing in the center of the space, he surveyed his work. With uncertainty. Had he done too much? Would Lily feel overwhelmed or worse, obligated? He wanted her to feel welcome but not smothered, provided for but not pitied. After a moment's hesitation, he removed some of the more expensive items, the brand new tablet, the designer clothes he'd impulsively purchased. Better to start with the essentials and let her ask for more if she wanted it. The sound of the security gate opening sent a jolt of anticipation through him. Max hurried down to the main house's entrance, taking a deep breath to calm himself before opening the door. His smile faltered when he saw not only Lily, but Victoria standing on his doorstep. Lily looked smaller than he remembered, her wary eyes darting between the siblings as she clutched her backpack and teddy bear. "Victoria," Max said, unable to keep the surprise from his voice, "I wasn't expecting you. I thought I should help." "Facilitate," Victoria replied smoothly. "Given the unusual circumstances." Max's confusion deepened as he noticed the formal-looking woman standing behind them. "And you are—" "Diane Winters, Child Protective Services," the woman explained, extending her hand. "I've been assigned to Lily's case." Max shook her hand, automatically his mind racing. How had CPS become involved? How had Victoria found Lily? The questions must have shown on his face. "Perhaps we should all go inside," Victoria suggested, her smile thin but composed. "We have much to discuss." Once seated in the living room, Ms. Winters explained the situation with practiced efficiency. "Ms. Calloway contacted our department after learning of your interest in providing housing for a minor. As you can imagine, there are protocols that must be followed, even in temporary guardianship situations." Max glanced at Lily, who sat perched on the edge of an armchair, looking ready to bolt at any moment. She hadn't said a word since arriving. "Of course," Max replied carefully, "but I'm curious how my sister became involved. Lily and I had only just spoken about this arrangement today." Victoria interjected smoothly. "When you mentioned a girl named Lily Parker, I made some inquiries. Given your recent emotional state after the accident, I wanted to ensure everything was above board." She turned to Ms. Winters. "My brother has a generous heart, but sometimes acts impulsively. I wanted to make sure proper channels were followed." The explanation made sense on the surface, but Max knew his sister too well. The calculated look in her eyes, the tight control in her voice, Victoria was hiding something. "I see," Max said, deciding to play along for now. "Well, I'm glad everything's being handled properly. Lily's welfare is my primary concern." Ms. Winters nodded approvingly. "The Calloway family's offer of stable housing is generous. However, without a formal kinship claim, we would normally place Lily back in the foster system while evaluating your home for potential certification as foster parents." Max tensed, seeing Lily's knuckles whiten around her backpack straps. The thought of her being forced back into a system she'd fled was unacceptable. "However," Ms. Winters continued, "Ms. Calloway has provided documentation suggesting a family connection, which allows for temporary emergency placement while the courts review the situation." Max turned to Victoria, genuinely shocked. "Family connection?" Victoria met his gaze steadily. "Yes, Max. It seems our father had connections we weren't fully aware of. According to records I recently discovered, Lily may be related to us through him." The calculated way she presented this information, as if it were news to her as well, confirmed Max's suspicions. Victoria had known, probably for years. Lily looked up sharply. "What are you talking about? My dad left before I was born. My mum never even told me his name." Victoria's smile didn't reach her eyes. "That's something we'll need to confirm officially, of course. But the documentation suggests Richard Calloway may have been your father, Lily." The room fell silent. Max watched Lily's face as she processed this information, confusion, disbelief, and then a flicker of something deeper, more painful. "That's not true," Lily said flatly. "My mom would have told me." "Sometimes adults keep secrets to protect the people they love," Victoria replied, her voice softening with practiced sympathy. "But we can discuss all this later. What matters now is that you have a safe place to stay while we sort everything out." Ms. Winters stood, apparently satisfied with the arrangement. "I'll need weekly check-ins and there will be a home study scheduled soon. As long as everything remains stable, this placement can continue while the family court reviews the case." After signing several forms, Max walked Ms. Winters to the door. When they were out of earshot of the others, she spoke quietly. "Mr. Calloway, finding long-lost family members is uncommon, but not unheard of. However, I must caution you, Lily has experienced significant trauma and instability. Whatever your intentions, her well-being must come first." "It does," Max assured her. "I only want to help her." When he returned to the living room, Victoria was already gathering her things to leave. "I've explained the basic situation to Lily," she said briskly. "I'll have the DNA test arranged for next week to formalize the kinship claim." Max nodded, still processing the calculated way Victoria had orchestrated everything. As he walked her to the door, he kept his voice low. "You knew all along, didn't you, about Lily, about our father?" Victoria paused, her back to him. "Not now, Max. We'll discuss this privately later." "Why the sudden change of heart?" Max pressed. "Yesterday you were calling her a street kid who couldn't be trusted. Today you're expediting her placement in my home." Victoria turned, her expression carefully controlled. "I realized how important this is to you. And if she truly is our sister, don't we have a responsibility to her? Isn't that what you've been saying?" The explanation seemed reasonable, but Max sensed an underlying calculation he couldn't quite decipher. Before he could press further, Victoria squeezed his arm. "Be careful, Max. Don't make promises you can't keep. And don't forget who you are, who we are." With that cryptic warning, she departed, leaving Max standing in the doorway, unsettled and suspicious. When he returned to the living room, Lily was standing by the window, her backpack still clutched to her chest like a shield. "Are you hungry?" Max asked gently, deciding to start with basics. Lily shrugged. "I guess." "How about I show you where you'll be staying, and then we can figure out dinner?" She followed him silently through the house and out to the converted garage. When Max opened the door to the apartment, Lily's eyes widened slightly as she took in the space, clean, comfortable, and private. "This is all for me?" she asked, her voice smaller than he'd heard it before. "Yes," Max replied simply. "You can change anything you don't like. Paint the walls, rearrange the furniture, whatever makes it feel like yours." Lily took a tentative step inside, setting her backpack down on the bed. She ran her fingers over the soft blanket, then moved to the window, looking out at the garden and the lake beyond. "Why are you really doing this?" she asked suddenly, turning to face him. "Is it true what that woman, Victoria, said about us being related?" Max hesitated, torn between honesty and caution. "I believe it might be," he said carefully. "I only learned about it recently. Myself, but that's not why I was looking for you." "Then why?" "Because you saved my life," Max said simply. "And because nobody should have to live under a bridge, especially not someone as brave as you." Lily studied him, her expression guarded but thoughtful. "And if the test shows we're not related, will you send me back?" "No," Max replied without hesitation. "Related or not, you have a place here for as long as you want it. No conditions." Something in his tone must have convinced her, because her shoulders relaxed slightly. She set Mr. Hugs, her one-armed teddy bear, on the bed with unusual care. "I've never had my own bathroom before," she admitted quietly. "Well, now you do," Max said, trying to keep his voice light despite the tightness in his throat. "And a kitchen. Though fair warning, I ordered pizza for dinner because my cooking skills are questionable at best." That earned him the faintest hint of a smile. "Pizza sounds good." They ate dinner at the small table in her kitchenette. The conversation stilted at first, but gradually easing as Max carefully steered away from difficult topics, instead asking about her favorite books, adventure stories, colors, blue and green, and foods, anything with cheese. As they finished, Lily stifled a yawn, the emotional and physical toll of the day catching up with her. "You should get some rest," Max suggested. "It's been a long day." Lily nodded, but hesitated as he stood to leave. "Max, what happens now, with all this family stuff?" Max considered his answer carefully. "Now you get settled. Get used to having a safe place to sleep and regular meals. The rest, the legal things, the family history, we can figure out as we go, at your pace, not anyone else's." She seemed to accept this, but as he reached the door, she called after him, "Why did she really come? Your sister. She doesn't like me." Max paused, surprised by her perceptiveness. "Victoria is complicated. She likes things to be orderly, controllable. But don't worry about her. This is between you and me." After saying goodnight, Max returned to the main house, his mind churning with questions. He tried calling Victoria, but she didn't answer. Instead, he contacted Samuel. "I need everything you can find on my father's relationship with Ellen Parker," he said without preamble. "And I need to know exactly what Victoria knew and when she knew it." "Lily's with you now?" Samuel asked. "Yes. Victoria somehow tracked her down and brought her here with CPS approval, claiming a family connection. She's orchestrating." "Some things, Samuel, I just don't know what." "I'll see what I can find," Samuel promised. "In the meantime, be careful. If Victoria had documentation about Lily, there might be legal complications you're not aware of." After hanging up, Max poured himself a rare glass of whiskey and stood by his own window, looking out at the garage apartment where a light still glowed softly. Inside was a girl who had saved him from drowning, who might be his sister, and who had known more hardship in 13 years than he had in 42. Whatever Victoria was planning, whatever secret still remained buried, one thing was certain. Max would protect Lily even if it meant standing against his own sister and the legacy his father had built. Across the garden, in her new room, Lily sat cross-legged on the bed. The softness of the mattress still strange beneath her. She ran her fingers over Mr. Hug's worn fur, whispering as if the bear could hear. "I don't trust them," she murmured. "The sister is lying about something. And Max, I don't know. He seems different." She moved to the window, watching the light in the main house where Max's silhouette was visible against the curtains. "If he's really my brother," she whispered, unable to complete the thought. For 2 years, she'd convinced herself she needed no one, that attachments were dangerous, that the only safety lay in remaining invisible. Now suddenly she had walls around her, a soft bed beneath her, and the possibility of family she'd never known existed. Lily closed the curtains and returned to the bed, placing her few possessions within easy reach, a habit formed by years of needing to leave at a moment's notice. As comfortable as this place was, she wouldn't get too attached. Life had taught her that anything good was temporary. Still, as she curled beneath the blankets, the unfamiliar sensation of safety washed over her. Just for tonight, she decided, she would allow herself to rest without one eye open. Just for tonight, she would believe this sanctuary might last. As she drifted towards sleep, Lily didn't know that across the city, Victoria sat in her home office, a glass of wine in one hand and a file labeled Parker Settlement in the other. Spread before her were legal documents, financial records, and a single photograph of Ellen Parker holding an infant. Victoria lifted her glass in a mock toast to the photograph. "You should have stayed lost, little sister," she murmured. "Some secrets are buried for a reason." She picked up her phone and dialed. "Lawrence, it's time to implement our contingency plan. Max is already too attached. We need to move quickly." In the quiet that followed, the chessboard was set. Victoria had made her move. Max was gathering his defenses. And between them, Lily slept, unaware that she had become the centerpiece in a game of family secrets that had begun before she was born. 3 weeks passed, in a delicate balance of cautious trust and unspoken questions. For Lily, each day brought small revelations, the luxury of a hot shower whenever she wanted, meals that appeared regularly, and a door she could lock or leave open by choice. The apartment had become a sanctuary she both treasured and distrusted, afraid to believe it could last. Max had been careful not to push, giving Lily space to adjust while remaining consistently present. They'd fallen into a rhythm of shared breakfasts in her kitchenette, during which they talked about neutral topics, books they'd both read, Seattle landmarks, the family of ducks that had taken up residence in his garden pond. In the evenings, he'd knock softly on her door with dinner, sometimes staying if she seemed open to company, other times simply leaving the food with a smile. On this particular morning, Lily stood before the bathroom mirror, barely recognizing herself. The gaunt, hollow-eyed girl from beneath the bridge had been replaced by someone with clearer skin, healthier hair, and eyes that held a tentative spark of something beyond survival. She was wearing new clothes, jeans and a blue sweater she'd selected during an awkward but surprisingly pleasant shopping trip with Max the previous week. A knock at her door pulled her from her thoughts. Max stood outside, car keys in hand, his expression a mixture of apology and resolve. "We need to talk," he said gently. "There's something I want to show you if you're up for it." Lily tensed immediately. This was it. The other shoe dropping. The moment when everything changed. She'd been expecting it, waiting for it, despite Max's consistent kindness. "What is it?" she asked, her voice carefully neutral. "It's about your mother." "And my father." Max hesitated. "And us. But I think it's better if I show you rather than just tell you." Lily considered refusing, retreating back into the apartment and locking the door. But curiosity, and something deeper she wasn't ready to name, made her nod. "Let me get my jacket." They drove in silence through Seattle's rain-slicked streets, heading east across Lake Washington to Bellevue. Max occasionally glanced at her, clearly wanting to say something but thinking better of it each time. Finally, they pulled up to an imposing glass office building with Callaway Enterprises emblazoned across the top. "Why are we here?" Lily asked as they rode the elevator to the top floor. "Because the truth is here," Max replied cryptically. "And it's time we both faced it." Victoria was waiting in the executive conference room, her expression tightening when she saw Lily. Lawrence Harrison sat beside her, a thick folder on the table before him. "Max, this isn't what we discussed," Victoria said sharply. "The DNA results aren't even back yet." "I'm not waiting for a test to tell me what I already know," Max replied, his voice firm as he pulled out a chair for Lily. "It's time for the truth, all of it." Victoria's eyes narrowed. "You're making a mistake." "No," Max countered. "The mistake was keeping her existence hidden for 13 years. The mistake was letting her live on the streets when she should have been with family." Lawrence Harrison cleared his throat. "Perhaps it would be best if the minor weren't present for this discussion." "Her name is Lily," Max said firmly, "and she has more right to be here than any of us. This is her history too." Lily, who had been following the exchange with growing confusion, finally spoke. "Would someone please tell me what's going on? If this is about whether we're related, just say it." Max sat beside her, his expression softening. "It's about more than that. It's about why we didn't know about each other until now." He turned to Harrison. "Show her the file. Show us both." After a tense moment, Harrison slid the folder across the table. Max opened it, revealing documents, photographs, and letters. On top was the picture of Ellen Parker, holding an infant wrapped in a red blanket. "That's my mom," Lily whispered, reaching for the photograph with trembling fingers. "And me." "Where did you get this?" "It was in our father's private files," Max explained gently. "Richard Callaway had a relationship with your mother 20 years ago. When she became pregnant with you, he paid her to move away and keep quiet about it." Lily stared at the photograph, her mind struggling to process this revelation. "My father was your father, and he knew about me," Victoria interjected, her voice sharp. "It was a different time. Our father had a public image to maintain. The company was expanding. A scandal would have—" "Stop," Max cut her off. "Don't you dare justify this." He turned back to Lily. "Yes, he knew, and he was wrong to abandon you. I'm sorry, Lily. So deeply sorry." Lily's eyes remained fixed on the photograph, her expression unreadable. "My mom never told me anything about him. She just said he left before I was born." "According to these documents," Max continued, turning pages in the file, "she signed a non-disclosure agreement. In exchange for monthly payments, she agreed never to contact our father or reveal his identity to anyone, including you." "And when my mom died?" Lily asked quietly. Victoria shifted uncomfortably. "The payments stopped. There was no further obligation." "Obligation?" Lily repeated, her voice suddenly hard. "I was a child who'd lost her only parent. I wasn't an obligation. I was family." The simple truth of her statement hung in the air. Max reached for her hand, but she pulled away, standing abruptly. "So that's why you've been helping me? Guilt? Pity for your father's secret mistake?" "No," Max insisted, rising to face her. "I had no idea who you were when you saved me. I only learned the truth after I started looking for you, and it doesn't change anything about why I wanted to help you." "It changes everything," Lily countered, backing away. "You weren't just being kind. You were trying to fix your father's mess." Before Max could respond, Victoria stood, her composure cracking. "That's enough. This emotional display is precisely why Father handled things the way he did. Some truths are better left buried." Like the fact that you knew all along, Max challenged, turning to his sister. That you've known about Lily for years and said, nothing even after our father died. Victoria's expression hardened. I was protecting our legacy, the company, your reputation. Everything we've built would be at risk if this came to light. At risk from what? Max demanded. From acknowledging that our father had another child, that we have a sister. Half-sister, Victoria corrected coldly. From a relationship that was never meant to last, Ellen Parker was a waitress at a hotel bar, a momentary distraction during a difficult time in our parents' marriage. My mother was a person, Lily interjected, her voice steady despite the tears forming in her eyes. Not a distraction, not a mistake. A person who raised me alone because your father was too much of a coward to acknowledge his own child. Victoria flinched as if slapped. Lawrence Harrison intervened, his tone placating. Perhaps we should focus on the present situation. The DNA test will confirm the relationship, after which we can discuss appropriate arrangements for the minors for Lily's future. What kind of arrangements? Max asked suspiciously. Victoria regained her composure. A trust fund, naturally, private schooling, all the advantages a Calloway should have, in exchange for discretion, of course. In exchange for staying invisible, Lily translated bitterly, for not embarrassing you by existing. This isn't about embarrassment, Victoria insisted. It's about protecting what our father built. What about protecting his daughter? Max challenged. What about acknowledging that our father made a terrible mistake in abandoning her, in forcing her mother to keep his identity secret? The tension in the room was palpable as decades of secrets and lies finally surfaced. Lily looked between the siblings, Victoria's cold calculation, Max's passionate indignation, and felt a surge of something beyond anger or hurt. Clarity. I want to leave, she said quietly. Max turned to her, his expression stricken. Lily, please, don't let Victoria's attitude— I need to think, Lily interrupted. This is too much. Max nodded, respect for her wishes overriding his desire to fix everything immediately. Of course. I'll take you home whenever you're ready. Victoria's lips thinned at his choice of words. Home? She's been there 3 weeks, Max. That doesn't make it her home. It is her home, Max stated firmly, for as long as she wants it to be. As they prepared to leave, Lawrence Harrison approached with a document. Before you go, there's the matter of the preliminary custody arrangement. Given the family connection, even before DNA confirmation, the court is inclined to grant temporary guardianship to Mr. Calloway with certain conditions. Victoria stepped forward. Actually, Lawrence, I've been reconsidering. Perhaps joint guardianship would be more appropriate. Max is often traveling for business, and the girl will need consistent supervision. The calculated intervention was transparent to Max. That won't be necessary. I've already informed the board I'm taking a sabbatical to focus on family matters. Victoria's shock was evident. You what? Without consulting me? Max, the Riverside project is at a critical stage. The investors will have to wait, Max finished. Some things are more important than real estate developments. The drive back to Max's house was silent, each lost in their own thoughts. When they arrived, Lily went straight to the apartment, closing the door firmly behind her. Max didn't follow, understanding her need for space. Inside, Lily sat on her bed. Mr. Huggs clutched to her chest, trying to process everything she'd learned. Her father hadn't been some nameless drifter who abandoned her mother, but a wealthy businessman who had paid to keep her existence a secret. She had siblings she'd never known, her family that had lived in luxury while she'd struggled to survive. The unfairness of it burned, but beneath the anger was a deeper pain, the realization that her mother had carried this secret to the grave, that she'd never had a chance to ask why. Hours later, a soft knock interrupted her thoughts. She opened the door to find Max standing there, holding a small wooden box. I found this in my father's study after he died, he explained. I never knew what it meant until now. Lily accepted the box cautiously. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with a single charm, a lily flower. A note in elegant handwriting read simply, "For when she is old enough to know." He kept this? For me? Lily asked, confusion clouding her expression. Max nodded. I think in his own flawed way he regretted his decision, not enough to fix it during his lifetime, but enough to leave this behind. Lily closed the box, setting it aside. It doesn't change what happened. No, Max agreed, nothing can change the past. But we can change what happens next. He hesitated. If you want to leave, I understand. I can help you find a different place. Make sure you're safe and provided for without any strings attached. And if I stay? Lily asked quietly. Then we figure it out together, Max replied. Not as a charity case and benefactor, not even just as brother and sister, but as two people who happened to find each other when they both needed someone. The simplicity of his answer resonated with Lily. For all the complexity of their situation, the legal documents, the family secrets, Victoria's machinations, what mattered was this: two people who had saved each other in different ways. I need time, Lily said finally, to think about everything. Max nodded. Take all the time you need. The choice is yours. The next morning, Lily woke early. She packed her few possessions into her backpack, a say-to-e habit too ingrained to break, and quietly left the apartment. But instead of heading for the gate, she walked toward the main house where she found Max in the kitchen making coffee. He looked up, noting her backpack with a carefully neutral expression. Good morning. I've been thinking, Lily said, setting her backpack down but keeping one hand on it. About what happens next. Max nodded, waiting for her to continue. I don't know if I can ever call you brother, Lily admitted, or if I want to be a Calloway, with everything that seems to come with it. But she took a deep breath. I'd like to stay, for now, to see if this can work. The relief that washed over Max's face was unmistakable. I'd like that too. I have conditions, Lily continued, her voice stronger now. I want to go back to school, but a normal one, not some fancy private academy. I want to visit my mum's grave in Portland, and I want to help other kids like me, the ones still under bridges and in alleys. Max smiled. Those sound like excellent conditions. And Victoria, Lily added, her expression hardening slightly. I don't trust her. I don't think I ever will. Max's smile faded. Victoria has spent her life protecting what our father built. It's all she knows. But she doesn't control what happens now. We do. As if summoned by her name, the doorbell rang, and Victoria appeared moments later, immaculately dressed despite the early hour. She faltered slightly at the sight of Lily in the kitchen. I see you're still here, she observed, her tone carefully neutral. I am, Lily confirmed, meeting Victoria's gaze steadily. Victoria turned to Max. The DNA results arrived this morning. She handed him an envelope. Congratulations, it's official. You have a sister. Max accepted the envelope but didn't open it. I already knew that. Victoria's gaze moved between them, noting their relaxed postures, the two coffee mugs on the counter. Something in her expression shifted, not quite softening but recalculating. The board is expecting your decision by Friday, she said to Max. Will you be returning to your position, or should I begin the process of naming an interim CEO? Max looked at Lily, then back at his sister. I'm taking that sabbatical we discussed. 6 months minimum. The company will survive without me. Victoria pressed her lips together, then nodded once. Very well, I'll make the arrangements. She turned to leave, then hesitated. Lily? Lily looked up, surprised to be addressed directly. Yes? For what it's worth, our father wasn't always the man who made that decision. Before the company, before the pressure and expectations, he was different, better. It wasn't an apology, not quite, but it was an acknowledgement. The first Victoria had offered that their father had been wrong. After she left, Lily and Max stood in silence for a moment. What now? Lily finally asked. Max considered the question. Breakfast, then maybe we could look at those school options you mentioned. Lily smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes. Breakfast sounds good. In the weeks that followed, they established a new normal. Lily enrolled in a public high school near Max's home, where her intelligence and resilience helped her catch up on the education she'd missed. Max stepped away from Callaway Enterprises, focusing instead on his transitional housing project for homeless youth, now expanded with Lily's input. Victoria remained a complex presence in their lives, never warm, but gradually less hostile, as she observed the positive changes in her brother and the undeniable Callaway traits in her half-sister. When the board threatened to replace Max permanently, it was Victoria who defended his sabbatical as a necessary family investment. 6 months after Lily had arrived, Max found her sitting on the dock behind his house, watching the sunset over Lake Washington. He joined her silently, respecting the contemplative moment. "I got an A on my history project," Lily mentioned casually. "The one about resilience through economic hardships." "That's fantastic," Max replied with genuine pride. "You've accomplished so much in such a short time." Lily nodded, then turned to face him. "I've been thinking about something. My last name." Max raised an eyebrow. "Parker is a good name, your mother's name." "It is," Lily agreed, "and part of me will always be Lily." "Parker, but—" She hesitated. "I'm thinking maybe Lily Parker Callaway wouldn't be so bad, for school documents and stuff." The significance of this gesture, this acceptance of the connection between them, wasn't lost on Max. "Are you sure?" Lily looked out at the water, where she'd once saved him from drowning. "My mom kept his identity secret because she thought it was best for me. He stayed away because he thought it was best for his family. Everyone was so busy deciding what was best that they forgot to ask what was right." She turned back to Max with clear eyes that held both wisdom and hope. "I don't want to hide anymore, not who I am, not where I came from, the good parts or the bad parts." Max felt a tightness in his throat. Parker Callaway sounds perfect. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting golden light across the water, they sat in comfortable silence, not just guardian and ward, not just half-siblings, united by blood, but two people who had saved each other from drowning in different ways. In the main house, the phone rang. Victoria's voice came through the answering machine, uncharacteristically hesitant. "Max, Lily? I was thinking, perhaps you both might come for dinner this weekend. There's a family photo album I found that, well, there are some pictures of father that Lily might like to see. Call me back when you can." Lily glanced at Max, a question in her eyes. "Your choice," he said simply. "Always your choice." Lily considered this, then nodded slowly. "Maybe we could go. Not because we have to, but because we choose to." "Family on your terms," Max agreed. "Family on my terms," Lily repeated, testing the words. For the first time in years, the future stretched before her, not as a threat to survive, but as a path to explore, not as a burden to bear alone.